Hi, my name is Casey Phelps. I'm a candidate for Master's in Educational Technology Leadership through Lamar University. My mentor is Scott Forrester. He's the Assistant Superintendent of Technology here at HEB ISD. I also am working with the principal on one of my campuses. I service 7 campuses, and I work with them on technology integration and instructional purposes of technology within the classroom environment and learning environment. I also support the hardware and software portion, so I kind of bridge the gap between what is necessary and what the teacher sees and needs, and the hardware techs and the people who come in and fix them and what they need to know from that perspective. Also working with the principal at one of my campuses that I support, and she is gracious enough to allow me to come in and work with her group of technology improvement committee, or their gold team. And I've got a really great group of people that I'm working with, and they have been instrumental in really getting a great professional development plan together. This is my leading video, and I chose option 1 for I felt it was a great opportunity to get teacher feedback in person, and also to be able to get the written feedback through my surveys as well. We talked about that collaboration piece of being able to get information back from the teachers, and most thought instead of having a meeting, they would much rather just get a link in their email, be able to tell me what they thought, and then for me to come back and just tell them when to come back for the next piece. And they really didn't want another meeting to plan for another meeting. So that kind of is how the idea of me working with the Technology Improvement Committee kind of was born. And we use the CI approach. And so you'll see Plan, Do, Study, Act, and that is kind of the way that we plan for improvements. And so this is our Campus Technology Improvement Plan. We used it from last year, what worked, what didn't, etc. We collected data from the teachers on what they were most interested in this year, and that was kind of how we started the discussion. And kind of used the guiding questions to further delve into the ideas the teachers offered and fueled a new direction for our plan this year. To prepare, I met with my mentor and we discussed the project. I then proposed the idea to the principal on the campuses. Out of the 7, this campus was a great fit for the project, as they were already interested in the potential of a campus technology improvement plan to continue the work that we started last year. This is the 2nd year I've worked with this campus and this faculty, so I feel like I've really kind of got on board with their community spirit, and they've kind of taken me in as one of their team, and so they've really enjoyed having that camaraderie to be able to learn new things in an environment that builds capacity for them. The Technology Goal team is comprised of members of the faculty from every grade level, and they also have exhibited an ability with technology. We call that tech savvy, and desire to help others grow in their own technology integration and usage. So we wanted them to have a cohort of people that they could go to for help and support. With 3 people on the campus, and 2 of those people only there for minimal to part-time, having someone that they can go down the hall and talk with about either a question or a problem really makes them feel more comfortable with using and sometimes failing when they use technology. And so kind of building up that idea of it's okay to fail. Let's try new things. Let's start with the small basics and kind of grow and kind of build up baby steps. Just like we teach a kid to read, we don't start with a college novel or a newspaper. No, we start with our letters and forming them, and then what sounds do they make, okay? So it's the same idea when you're putting in a technology professional development. And So there's no reason to feel like they were not getting something or that they did not meet the expectation the first time they ever used it. And so kind of alleviating that has kind of been one of the biggest hurdles last year. I wanted to briefly address what our guiding questions were and our goal. I talked about this in the video, but our goal is to effectively implement and model best practices, teaching with technology. And then these guided questions are what types of programs that the teachers were most interested in learning about, what their preferred method of professional development was, and the model of PD, and model lessons and their effectiveness. And so I go into a little bit more detail within the video when I'm talking to the leadership team, technology team, and we have already met with the staff and they have given us some of this. You'll also notice in the video that we have actually started implementing some of these things. And so it kind of was a good checkpoint for us to see what was working and whether or not it was meeting the needs. And so there will be some of the professional development will already have been addressed. And so it definitely made a good checkpoint for me because I can look back and see that we're meeting the needs.
Let's take a quick look at the data we used in conjunction with the plan we had in place before we get too far into our meeting. We started out with a session to reintroduce and further the concept of SAMR. We adopted the SAMR model for technology integration here at HEB ISD. In this initiative, it was part of my district technology improvement goal to give an overview to each campus I serve, then to come back and readdress in the same year. After the initial year, once we are comfortable with each strand, I realized I would have to come back and readdress the concepts and how that looked in each classroom, how it differentiates based on the students, teachers, administrations, and technology available for each classroom in question. A basic review of SAMR, in case it is a new concept, was developed by Dr. Ruben Puentedora. He gave 4 levels of technology integration as a model of where we are in the efforts to integrate technology. We found that most of our teachers and administrators across the district were at the substitution level. At the substitution level, you will find that participants are merely substituting or changing out the same activity to perform it with technology. So, if we are writing on paper, the substitution would be writing on the computer using Microsoft Word instead. There is not a functional or transformational change in the learning taking place. As we address this to the dismay of most teachers and our administrators who found themselves in this area, we had to remind them that this is not a bad place to be. It is a tool to show where we are and what else we could accomplish. Allowing students to use the computer for word processing gains the advantage of engagement for reluctant writers, access to students who need the spelling, grammar, thesaurus, or other accommodations that include typing, screen time, etc. We were also careful to note that no campus will be operating at a redefinition level all the time. This is not an expectation. We want to see it happen every once in a while, but it is not our goal to see it in everyday, all the time situations. It's not something our district is capable of fulfilling at this time. Next, we have augmentation. In this part, we have the activity done with technology. We have engagement and learning going on, but there is not functional change happening. We have a few campuses that are striving for this as their implementation plan, to bump up their SAMR. Keeping this growth mindset in mind, It's easy to see those campuses reaching their goal much easier and manageable than a few campuses who want to be at the top of the line and are looking for redefinition in larger quantities around their campuses, without affecting the change in a way to allow access to technology and resources needed to gain this level. Next up, we cross the line from enhancement to transformation, and we come across modification. In the modification area, we find that the activities like making an online interactive poster, adding video content, surveys, uploading work samples, pictures, and various other information, they are utilizing higher order thinking skills and processes to produce outcomes. Lastly, we look at redefinition. We look at completely redefining the task in a way that without technology it wouldn't be possible. Like Skyping an author to learn about the writing process or creating a collaborative video project. As I said before, we would be remiss to expect the redefinition level at every turn. It is a goal to try for, surely, but not an application in our entire school district with the resources we currently have available. As we take a look at the survey results by the staff, I took this as a definition purpose of understanding, as I wanted to see what they truly thought about themselves, that self-reflection, and where they would place themselves on the scale. Sometimes it is easy to put a skewed sense of self on display, and I needed to dial down these in a way that would not break the relationships I had built on campus and the positive climate for change, while still addressing the errors in thinking. This campus, for example, I have never experienced a redefinition lesson given, nor could someone actually explain to me what made that a redefined level or transformational level lesson. So this is where we would have started this year. The teachers who correctly guessed that they operate at a substitution level, we made plans to create new opportunities in the classroom, even if it remained at the substitution level. Others found that they were ready to move into the augmentation or highlighting a few, 1 or 2, max 3, redefinition level activities throughout the year. Next, we looked at those who felt that they were beyond the substitution level, and we looked at what it would entail to bring their level to the next level up. I found a few of the teachers that gave themselves a redefinition status, or those who do not use technology in instructional practices. When gently questioned, I found they truly believed that the integration efforts they had tried firmly suggested that that was the top of their game regarding integration. So we talked about how that could be rephrased, especially when they would see this on their appraisal this school year. It would feel like a betrayal to allow them to think they were personally at a level they would not achieve on their PDOS, and not give warning that this was due in part to their thinking on the matter. The areas we surveyed were SAMR in the following areas or categories: active and engaged learning, authentic assessment, classroom management, cooperative learning, differentiation, and use of technology. Once I discussed this with the GOLD team, we determined the need for further analysis of the staff, more training in a non-traditional sense, and we opened an online training portal for learners to come in and get a better sense of an implementation plan. Next, once everyone was on board with the online training and they had taken a look at the self-reflection process, we looked at what kind of technology they were most interested in implementing this year. we decided it was easiest to use a Google survey, again, because they were familiar with it from last year and this year for gathering data. It was also easy for me to share it with our goal team and to collaborate with our administration on the efforts to integrate technology. The things I asked them about in this section of the survey would be whether they were interested in Google Docs, Edmodo, ClassDojo, iPad apps for their classroom, or SAMR, a lesson crashers. The Google Docs, we do not use Google as a district, but we do use them for processing like these surveys and the Google Forms. We also use the Google organizations that they can come in and share information that way. So even if we do not use the classroom portion, there are lots of added benefits there. Also, taking that into the realm of YouTube and things like that, that they would have a Google account for, that was something that they were interested in. In Edmodo, they would be looking at learning management systems. This one is an easy one for new users to implement. Within ClassDojo, this would be an application to use with our CHAMPS model for classroom behavior management, and also using that as a campus initiative. And we have looked at 2 or 3 campuses that have done this on grade levels as guinea pigs for us, and we've noticed an increase to 70% of parent interaction on a campus that had very little interaction prior to that, and it has become a campus initiative on those who tried it out, and now we're looking at a couple other campuses to pilot as well, in addition to their CHAMPS program. This campus has a similar demographic, so I thought they would be great at trying that out, even if it was just a few of our lower performing grade areas. Also, iPads, we have 1 cart per campus, and so I noticed on this campus that they are not being checked out regularly, so I wondered if it was because they did not know what to do with them, that they were not interested in them, or if it was that they just didn't know what was on the iPad at all. So this was kind of an introduction to that. And then the last option was the SAMR. Again, how did that look like in a lesson? And kind of taking it beyond the basics of just the understanding what those things were, but what that actually looked like in the classroom, and how I could put several of those pieces together to gain that redefinition, or even just to do a substitution lesson if that's where I was on my plan.
Okay, so welcome to our goal team for technology. I know you guys have been working hard all year on our goal, which is to effectively implement and model best practices, especially with teaching with technology. And we're going to look at what our goals were last year, where we went from last year's professional development, and what we did, and how to make that better. So we've got some guided questions, and we took this to the staff and used a Google Doc. We were able to compile some of that data together, and you'll see some of the other talks that we've had with the staff, but kind of where we want to go from here. And so first we wanted to look at what types of programs we're most interested in learning about. Some of you were thinking that maybe we should focus on specific programs versus ideation at this point, so we want to kind of look at what the staff thought of that versus having us specifically look at just the ideation piece of that or a curricular area. They were more interested in the product itself. The other was their preferred method of professional development, and what I mean by that is, do they want it on the campus? Do they want district level? Do they want to see a certain person or group of people come in? Do they mind if it's me? Do they want to see their peers? Do they want online that they can do at their own pace? So just a couple different options to kind of spur that conversation, and that's one of the things we talked about. The next thing is the model of PD that they wanted to kind of take away. So do they just want to sit and get and me to go through, show them the steps, and then go investigate on their own? Do they want time to investigate with their peers, or are they wanting to make something to take back to their classroom and implement immediately after? And so just kind of getting some ideas on that. And then the very last question was to do the model lessons. Last year we did quite a few, and those have seemed to be pretty effective for the teachers especially, but also for the kiddos and some of their student achievement scores. And so taking that next level of professional development back to the classroom versus it always being something that the teachers come to, so I'm kind of coming to them. And so one thing, was it effective or not, and how effective was it professional development style, and then if they like that more with the student or without students, whether they wanted it an individual where it's just them learning, or if they would like to see that as a whole group modeled, and kind of some differentiation on how we want to have that in the future. Okay, so last year, we're going to kind of talk about the improvement plan from last year and kind of phase that into this year's planning. So go ahead and look at last year's plan was to have the principal and I kind of came up with this, and we discussed it over time, was that we want to see technology being used at a higher cognitive level, and we want it seamless. That was kind of the key word that we were going to work with, was seamless. We didn't want it to look like something else, or something added to, or something outside of the curriculum, something outside of what you're currently doing, something that I've got to think about because it's not there for me. I don't know what tools are going to be there, but I've got to come up with something. We want it seamless. We want it to look and feel like something that's going to have added value to whatever we're doing already. And we just want to kind of bump up what thinking that we're having. We don't want to just substitute. And that kind of goes back to that SAMR model that we talked about last year, and we started some of that where, you know, we're just taking the exact same thing, we're putting it in technology and saying that we're good, instead of actually redefining and enhancing learning and engagement process. So we talked about kind of how we wanted to propose the beginning of technology development with me coming on board with this campus. This is a new position for me, and you know, last year was my first year with this campus, and kind of developing those relationships with the teachers, that they feel comfortable with me coming in and doing professional development and what that kind of will look like. And so we kind of talked about each 6 weeks highlighting something that they could come and choose to come to, and things like that. It was not the best plan, and we definitely, you know, we'll have to look at, you know, how to make that more effective in the future. But we definitely talked about SAMR. We talked about iPad apps. We did a Google Doc and Google survey portion. And then we have a small pilot of people doing e-portfolios and kind of some data folders all online with OneNote. And so I know that part of that is all that 365 and kind of working through some of those processes and kind of getting kids up to speed on some of those productivity tools that kind of go into that learning phase. So where I think we kind of failed on this was after the training portion, which is kind of where those guiding questions are going to come from, is how do we want to make sure that that's effective when we're implementing it. All right, so our little follow-up was, you know, we did do a grade book and also Office 365 at the beginning of the year, and we felt like both of those were ready to be phased out of our plan and moved on. We felt like we accomplished that, and so one of the things that we want to talk about was follow-up needed for this year and follow-up on the SAMR, because we don't feel like we really accomplished that as much. So that's going to be part of our new goals that we're going to move forward with. All right, so if we also look at our account, DPE help, and looking at our trends from the first semester to the second semester, and how people are using the help accounts to get help from their support people, like myself, we're noticing that we have a very high volume of technology questions, things like that, coming towards the beginning of the year, which is very typical across the board. And I'm noticing that definitely the gradebook questions have definitely, after that initial training, have definitely decreased, and so that's a really good thing to note on here. And so just kind of looking at some of that data that pulls out from all of those email systems and what that looks like on our end, so that we know what that support needs to look like on the teacher's end. Our goal this year was that all questions that come in through these accounts will be answered within 24 hours. And while that is not 100% for sure, we're looking at a 66% rate right now overall, and I know that that is increasing as our number of volume is decreasing as well. So I think that that has definitely increased from last year, and so I'm interested to keep that kind of data up so that we know that we are giving the best support we can in technology. So that's kind of that overview. Help account emails have dropped dramatically. We got a new CTA, and our librarian issues were addressed, and I know that partially was just one of those things that, you know, you got to get new people in there, and you got to kind of get everybody trained and back on speed. And so that being 2/3 of the group of people who work on those help accounts and who's troubleshooting and who's there on campus, and so that makes a huge difference. Now that they're on board, they're ready to go, we are meeting those expectations a little bit closer, and that's another reason you'll see that 66% go up towards the end of the year. Then we want to look at, the biggest area of need is still hardware, and so we wanted to look at one of the questions going towards that guided question area is, you know, is one of the tools we want to look at kind of how do I troubleshoot when something goes wrong in my classroom, and how do I help myself before it even gets to the point where I can't teach because I don't have the applications that I need, and just kind of where we want to go with that. So I want to obviously, you know, studying that, we want to look at on this side, that's just for your perusal, what those each categories mean, just so that, you know, from that earlier slide, which y'all have access to, kind of gives you an idea of why I chose those for certain categories and where those categories come from. All right, so next, we want to look at professional development, and this is a little bit different than our help account because this is actual hours of professional development done on campuses. You see my lovely list of campuses here, and we are going to look at specifically the next campus, which is us, Dunn Park, so there's our little deal here. And I just want you to see that in relationship to others, you are definitely on board, you're on track. You definitely have more hours of professional development versus your model lessons. The only other one is Harrison Lane, they're kind of beating y'all in that one. And that's just the amount of teachers who've actually asked me to come in and do those model lessons. And compared to what the after hours and district level PD is kind of up here. And so I just wanted you to kind of see the difference between what they're being offered outside of versus what they're being offered at the campus level itself. And so we've got, like I said, 10 hours of model lessons when you're thinking, you know, 15 minutes here and 30 minutes here. Sometimes, you know, it's me starting the lesson and the teacher taking over. It's phasing out from my model to the teacher implementing it in the classroom, and video modeling, things like that. That's where that professional development comes in for modeling. And then the other professional development is actually sit down, let's talk about, let's get the ideas, let's look at the curriculum, and let's do an implementation of how this is going to work and how it looks. And let's look at the next slide. All right, so this is where we need to go with our next PDSA and our act. We want to kind of look at pulling our interest, which, you know, we've just concluded, and we'll look at that. We want to look at the keeping the trend the same. So getting that interest and engagement with the teachers, learning new things, trying new things, having that, building that capacity, and then again with the professional development and the modeling. So I think both of those should stay right where they're at and or grow. And then we want to discuss those guiding questions and obviously meet with you guys. And so that moves us on to the next portion. This is a brief sample of one of the pieces of professional development we did earlier this year, kind of starting off our kickoff into some of the professional development that we wanted to do with this video modeling piece that we're going to be pulling in. And so I know I've been working with a select group of teachers, and so they've all invited me in to actually video them and do some best practices, and then also some others who are willing to kind of pull in some of their curriculum pieces and create channels for parents to have available options for homework and study groups and some parenting skills, community involvement, that sort of thing. Also some basic tips and tricks of having a fourth grader or having a kindergartner and some different things like that just to kind of help our parents. And that leads into a lot of our parent involvement pieces that we've been doing this year. And so if you kind of notice, they're not interested in troubleshooting themselves. That was one of the things that they just, didn't find that was a necessary thing. And you can see that even from our guiding questions, we've very much narrowed it down to different pieces. These were the four that had come back from those original questions as the staff had most interest in. And so then I wanted to see from then how we could kind of manage what was most interested, across the board. And you can see that some are we've kind of got a half and half interested in the smartboard, but these are a little bit more heavily, yes, you have your naysayers who don't want to get on YouTube, but between the two, these are kind of the direction we want to go. And so, like we said, we started with the PowerPoint and Office mix, and I've got several people who are working on those. And then I'm working with the instructional specialist to kind of get on board and help us with some of those video pieces. And so we'll be looking at, when we come back from the break, looking at that YouTube channel part and kind of getting everybody on the same board. And we had a lot of teachers who were very interested in going back to those guiding questions, more or less having the professional development here. They still like the option of it not being a mandatory Thursday meeting, instead having it on a Tuesday night, having it on a Wednesday or Monday. Those were their favorite days. And just, if I'm interested in that topic, I come. And I stay for as long as I can. It never ends later than about 5:30. That was one of the cutoffs, was so that they could get to other schools in time to pick up their kids from aftercare and things like that. They didn't want to have to travel anywhere. They really liked the model lessons, would like to continue that. And some groups were more or less, they wanted the same lesson to be presented to the entire group. So if one got it, everybody got it. And so kind of figuring out how we want to move those model lessons and what that integration piece is going to look like. And so I sat down with the principal and we discussed these pieces, got on the calendar. And so I know that those will be coming out and communicating with the staff. And so this was kind of the findings that we found from what the teachers were saying, and this is kind of where we're at. And we will obviously have for the smart board, I am going to have it just as a come if you want to. New teachers, I've actually met with every single one of them. So if they've never been in the district or never had a smart board before, I have actually met with them individually and worked with the tools that would be most effective in the classroom for the grade level and subject area that they're teaching. So I have, I think, met the need in that area because I haven't heard a whole lot more about it after the fact, and it's actually taken care of some of those troubleshooting issues along the way too, because they're not having as many issues with not being able to get a clear screen or being able to zoom in out. The pen is not working because it's not marking where I want it to mark. Things like that that are pretty simple and can, they can cause havoc in your classroom on the day that the training, or the day of the, lesson. But if it's just a button or two that you're clicking, you can get right back into instruction. So it's less time that we are waiting on someone to come and fix something if they can do it right off the bat. So that has helped decrease some of that as well. I know the other part of this was, our kids don't have time for this, and we don't have time for this, and so time is one of those biggest management pieces, and so how do we make that most effective? And I know that that's one of the biggest things, and where we're really going to delineate between the people who really want to bump up their SAMR or move from one area to the next. And now that it is part of your PDOS, I know that that's going to be kind of one of those things that we definitely want to look into, and so we're going to put more effort into it than others. And so giving them that opportunity, I know, is one of the things that we wanted to do.
In the video, I met with the technology goal team. We briefly identified the plan from last year and where the data tells us we need to go when we use the PDSA format for us to remove technology PD we were no longer interested in or have successfully covered, and moved over to the new information we need to discuss. They were glad to see that the staff had indeed given a response, and were kind of surprised at the results. Several had heard from teachers that they were hoping for certain things like the tips and tricks or troubleshooting, and also that how they never got to come last year to certain trainings because of tutoring or some conflict. So that tells me that we are still kind of hearing different things that our findings may have not caught on to. And it might just be due, in fact, to having the ear of someone that they've worked with for several years versus an outsider coming in from the district. And so the team decided that we should continue looking at different feedback tools. So I suggested a couple others. I suggested we try Padlet again, today's Meet for a back channel, or something like a TitanPad where we could all collaborate on the same document, or a Google Doc. And just leaving these kinds of things open for them to collaborate and talk to each other. And then one option was possibly opening a Google community, and they were actually really excited about the Google community idea because, well, first off, because we're already doing some of the Google Plus world, so they were kind of getting a little bit more interested in that. But I do have another campus who I was able to use their model as kind of that jumping off point of being able to put not just the technology goal team, but all the goal teams, and have that as a place for them to all collaborate together and put their ideas and plans together in a way that everybody can see. And it's a great way to get information back out to the rest of the campus community. And everyone could get on and share, good things that are happening. And everyone's had the video of, something happening, or the, pictures of so-and-so's kids or grandkids. It would be a great place to add that community and that support. And so it was kind of adding a new piece for discussion, of course, and kind of how we wanted to start implementing that, and maybe even looking at how the other campus is using that before making that decision for the teachers. And kind of going back to that idea of where they were comfortable in that Google Plus world. They're getting their YouTube channels set up, they're uploading videos, and creating videos, but also it's very similar to that 365 cloud-based services we already delved into last year. And so it's just kind of adding a different piece and a different scope of things as they're kind of getting into that idea of a digital platform for all of their and cloud-based so that they can get it from home, and giving that access to our kids service versus a shared folder that they have only when they're at school on their school laptops. And I just have to say that, taking this in one of those reflection pieces is that the direction of the PD really opened the doors for family engagement, and with the addition of a new ESL teacher and a huge inflow of students from the Congo across the district, we started off with a very small population needing parent resources. And so we've actually had a combined effort between campuses to get those parents together and be able to show them resources in the community for them, and get them in contact with others that are in similar situations. And it all kind of started off with videos of the students and how they progressed since coming into the country, learning the language, and it's kind of gone into the larger district community and versus our smaller campus community, and kind of bringing that idea of a global community on a small scale, obviously not quite global, but within our district, a more global idea than just what is going on right on the campus. And it kind of allows me to then direct that back to, okay, so how can I bring that same excitement and engagement to the classroom? And just as we were bringing all of these about, it puts up new conversations for the teacher to be able to implement in the classroom, which is kind of where we wanted to go, so that the kids are actually interacting with the technology. And kind of going back to kind of the difficulties of working with this campus is that they were very reluctant to work with me at first. I was kind of an unknown coming in with new ideas, and it was scary. And they got to know me and my style, my smile too. And the administration has kind of let me come in and reimagine the way we see the role that I play. And I'm kind of more a part of the team rather than in the past, it was kind of a nebulous and non-tangible program or position that I kind of redefined. Now they see me in the hallway, grab me to work on this idea, or hey, come see what we did with that new tool you shared, or just the idea that I'm a little bit more approachable and visual, and I think that is an indication of what we did in the past. Prior to me coming to this campus just wasn't effective, and that we're opening new doors for teachers by allowing them this relationship and bridge to technology and integration. And they were right on board with me on that. They really felt that they had someone who was listening to the real problems that were going on, and helping them get new ways of expressing what their problem is and what they need so that they can be most effective. And that approachable piece, it's just like having a teacher you don't like, or person who's unpleasant to work with. And it's very hard to want to put yourself into a role of this may not work, and trying new things, and taking a risk. And it's very difficult to do those things if you don't have trust that someone's going to be there to support you and what you were trying to do. We've met a couple times now, and we've had a few trainings. This meeting was kind of a follow-up. We had to start with getting the administration on board and kind of getting past the initial startup at the crazy beginning of the year. And the team really just needed to step back and see what I proposed first, and then they wanted to come back after the break, and they kind of wanted to look at the data that I had already looked at, and I mean, they wanted to see what I found, but then they wanted to make their own conclusions about it, but before making any changes to the plan. I think they were pleasantly surprised at the mentoring going on, and some of them a little jealous that, they weren't involved. So this is going to spur more interest. And since they're the leaders when it comes to integrating and piloting new ideas, this is really going to get the rest of the staff to come on board and get excited too, and get excited about trying new things and taking those risks, like we said. Just the fact that they want me in their classroom to come, and bring new ideas is showing a great deal of trust and faith that they've put into me being as part of their team and part of their school community. And so we still need to address some pieces. And one of those things that I kind of left them with is that hardware and software and reporting piece. We're finally fully functioning. And so I kind of need some feedback from the individuals, a little bit more qualitative than quantitative, about that process. And are we just ignoring the problems because they're not being fixed, and so I'm not hearing about them through our feedback system, or have we really fixed them and things are just running smoothly because of the people we have in place? And so I definitely kind of wanted them to put the ear to the ground and kind of see what they hear. And so we did also put together a new agenda, and we will come back after the holidays to piece it all together and get it ready for the spring. We'll look at the dates given by the administrator, and I will meet back with my mentor, Scott, and after we meet this next time, then we will put forth that plan and take it to the administrator. And so I think that we are in a great place. I think that we are communicating well, and that we are well on our way to making this a successful year of professional development. And, looking at what that's going to look like in the future.